Today, let's define what's dynamic range in your Canon camera. Basically, dynamic range in a Canon camera is the ability of your camera to balance the highlights and the shadows of an image while retaining their details. A wider dynamic range means that your camera can take detailed highlights and shadows, while narrower dynamic range, the highlights and shadows appear blown out. Let us look at these two images, one captured by a 2000D and the other by the R8. In the first image, the highlights and the shadows are blown out. In the image of an R8, the shadows and the highlights appear to have blended well. It is important when purchasing a new camera to check its dynamic range. Basically, high dynamic range cameras are more expensive. For instance, my R8 is $1,500 while my 2000D is $400. To correctly nail the dynamic range in a camera, take a keen look at the exposure triangle of your camera. Basically, there are three types of exposure: underexposures, underexposure, correctly exposed, and overexposed pictures. This can be clearly viewed when using the camera's histogram. To correctly get a right dynamic range, photographers are advised not to take images directly illuminated by the sun to avoid blown out highlights and the shadows. It is very important that a photographer uses the exposure triangle correctly. In most cases, expose to the right by increasing the exposure as fast as possible until the right side of the histogram begins to gain value.